Good morning everyone, and welcome to the Orchid Hut. My name is Dana, if you're new here. And as you can see in the background, the weather has shifted to a beautiful, sunny, but rather cool day. My outdoor orchids have spent a couple of nights in the garage. I think they will need to be in there one more night, and then they'll be able to go back to their regular places outside. But today I wanted to share with you an orchid, or rather two orchids in my collection, which have continued to be such a mystery to grow. And I'm sure everybody has an orchid or two like this in their collection. You're trying to figure it out, you're trying to figure out what it's doing, and you know, it just behaves mysteriously, and this is that orchid for me. I have officially had this orchid now for exactly 1 year. It arrived in an online shipment, a mail order shipment at the end of October last year. And when I received this orchid, it was in one rather small pot. It had a very, very frail bloom spike, which didn't exactly completely develop correctly, and it didn't open correctly, and so it was for the most part a failed bloom. But as I continued to watch the orchid in the small pot, it kind of just was behaving strangely. So let's get the name of it out of the way and a little bit about its background, and then I will continue the story of this orchid. So the name of it is Miltassia Dark Star, and it has a beautiful spidery-like purple bloom with some spots on it, although the bloom that I had didn't exactly look like the online pictures, probably because it didn't develop correctly. And it's an intergeneric hybrid between Brassia and Miltonia, so it's part of the Oncidium alliance. But it doesn't really behave exactly like an Oncidium. Okay, so back to the story. It was one orchid in a small pot, and I noticed after a few months that about a third of the plant seemed to be withering and dying. And I had also been kind of curious why all of the pseudobulbs in the original pot were kind of at a different level. Some seemed to be planted too deep, some seemed to be kind of higher in the pot. And because a third of the plant was not looking healthy at all, I decided to repot it. So when I took it out of the original pot, lo and behold, it was 3 very separate plants. Well, I didn't exactly want 3 plants, but when I repotted them, I said, okay, I'll just split them apart. And now you can see I'm down to 2, because the one plant that was already on its way out just continued to die and wither away, and I threw it out and just continued to take care of these 2. Well, I had noticed before I even repotted these that they seemed to be strangely thirsty. They kind of like interrupted my typical watering scheme, and I was having to come back to this orchid, you know, every other day, every second day, because it was completely dried out. Yet when you look in the pot, you really don't see any kind of extensive root system. Maybe the roots are in the interior of the pot, but in any case, it does seem to drink a lot of water and dry out rather quickly. The way I take care of these is in the eastern exposure of my bay window, so they're inside. They get several hours of pretty bright, you know, morning sun, and then the rest of the day it's, you know, bright daylight. So I can't imagine that I'm not giving it enough light, and I'm certainly giving it enough water. But okay, so these 2 continued to grow as I repotted them about 9 or 10 months ago. And like for this one, this was the original plant like about 6 pseudobulbs, and then this was the growth most recently produced. And then for this one, it was a 3 pseudobulb plant, and it produced this new growth. And so both of the new growths on these plants look fine. What I noticed last year with the bloom spike is that it developed in between the pseudobulb and this largest leaf on the side. So if it were going to bloom, it would be in this location right here, in between the largest leaf on the side of the pseudobulb. Okay, so for that one I would be expecting a bloom spike there, and for this one I would be expecting a bloom spike right here. But, you know, as I look down into that space, I see nothing starting to develop in the way of a bloom spike, and this kind of was the time last year when it had a bloom spike. So I'm talking to this plant, bloom, bloom, it's time to bloom. But I don't see that yet. And then even on this one, now there seems to be a new growth right down there. So I don't know if this plant wants to put on new growth. I don't know if this plant intends to bloom. So I'm going to have to research this a bit more, see if there's something that's missing with light or temperature or fertilizer. I have been feeding it a little bit of bloom booster, so I don't think that's the problem. But it continues to be a mystery, and I know all of us have orchids like that in our collection, and until we figure it out and get it right, you know, it just isn't going to do necessarily what's expected. So for now, you know, until I'm able to do that research, and maybe it will still bloom this year, I don't know, maybe I'm just too anxious and I need to be patient and give it the time that it needs. But we'll just have to wait and see. I've got a little bit of mold snow on top of the pot here that I probably need to treat. Okay, so this is my mysterious orchid, Miltassia Dark Star. Gorgeous purple bloom. I hope one day I'm able to get it to bloom for me. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video or learned something new, please hit the like button, and the subscribe button will be in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Thanks for watching, and talk to you next time.